Welcome to the Studio Chat podcast. My name is Barbara Thompson. Each week I'll be bringing you a self-care expert or a message to help you to discover how to live your best life and understand your mind-body connection. Thanks for spending some time with me today. Now, let the Studio Chat begin. On today's episode of Studio Chat, I had a great conversation with Steph. She's from Happy Healing Hypno, and she's a self-directed healer, and it's all about emotional release therapy. And it was such an interesting conversation because I didn't know anything about emotional release therapy, and it really is a great tool to put in your self-care toolkit when it comes to looking after yourself and that mind-body connection. You can check her out on Instagram. Her handle is Happy Healing Hypno. And yeah, just get nice and comfy and enjoy the chat I had with Steph. Hey, Steph, I want to welcome you to the Studio Chat podcast today. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's so nice. And I know you're in London at the moment. So what time is it there at the moment?
Yeah, it's 10 p.m. here. I've just had a bath. I've got my pajamas on. This is the first time I've done a podcast in my pajamas, so I'm kind of stoked with this.
Oh, yeah.
I know it's early for you.
Yeah, it's 7, and I know some people listening to this are like, Barbara, that's not early, but for me lately, 7 a.m. I used to get up at 4, and I'm wanting to work towards that, but
Yeah, no, 7 a.m. is early.
Yeah, thank you.
Especially for a full-on chat. Most of the time I'm like, please don't talk to me before 9 a.m. So I feel you.
That's why I've got my coffee here, so I'm all good.
Beautiful.
So, yeah, I'd love to know a bit about you, Steph, and what is it that you actually do?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you so much for giving me the space to talk today. I am so passionate about getting this sort of message across. So what I do is I'm an emotional release therapist. So basically I work with trapped emotions, limiting beliefs, stored trauma, all the things that we suppress and they get stored in the body. So in our sessions, we release that. And there's a whole process that obviously we're going to talk about today that we go through. But in short, I help release emotions.
Which is I've actually personally never heard of this. So when we started talking on Insta, I was like, oh my gosh, emotional release therapy. I don't know if you get a lot of people that read it and go, okay. Actually, because that could make people feel a little bit uncomfortable.
Definitely. Yeah. And some people, I say that and they think it's dodgy and I'm like, what? No. Especially guys, they're like, oh, really?
Oh, it's the word release, righto. Yeah.
Release. And I'm like, then I have to explain it really quick. I'm like, no.
You're like, oh, okay, if you want it to
be. Yeah, right?
It's pretty cool. But yeah, that's why I was so excited to have you on here, because I'm all about Studio Chat podcast, and my business self-care studio is all about bringing these tools to ladies that self-care isn't just one thing, and over our lifetime with our experiences it changes, so what works one time, next year in 5 years time you might be like, oh my god, this isn't working for me anymore. So by having you on here, it's such a great toolkit that my listeners can contact you. And emotional release therapy, okay, so tell me more.
We'll go. Yeah. Well, like you said as well, just to touch on what you've just said about it being, one thing might work now and then later another thing will work, like healing, self-care, all of this stuff, it's a huge journey as well. We're constantly evolving and changing as people, so what we need in any given moment is always going to be changing as well. So the reason I am so passionate about this work that I do is because it kind of gets every angle. In terms of modalities, we do talk therapy at the beginning, then we go into hypnotherapy, and then we do a lot of like body testing and sort of energy work as well. So it's kind of everything in one. So when we look at a session, how it would all work is, first of all, download. We just talk, like, what is going on right now, what things are happening in your life, what is worrying you the most or causing you the most stress. Most people come to a therapist because there is something going on in their lives, right? Or something that they want to change, and usually it's fueled by quite a lot of emotion. So the first part of it is just letting them speak, just letting them offload, letting them just tell you. And there's just a lot of release in just speaking as well. You'll be surprised to know how many people don't even have anyone to speak to. So that's the first part of it, right? And just really validating how that person feels, because everything that everyone is going through is their truth. That's how they feel. That, it's important to validate that. And then what we do is we start going into finding limiting beliefs, really finding what emotions are holding them back and all of that kind of thing. So I have about 20 to 30 questions that I ask my client. So before I ask them the questions, it's really, really important to get the client into a state where they can really relax. Okay, so we want to start asking these questions while they're in their subconscious mind, because we have your conscious mind and your subconscious mind. And obviously, I'm sure you're aware, your conscious mind is how you sort of interact throughout the day. It's where you kind of make all your day-to-day choices, all of these things. This is how we kind of carry out in society. But our subconscious mind is where all the real, like, deep beliefs about who we are sit. They're all our internal things that, sometimes when you're kind of like, I don't know why I'm like that, but I'm just like that. Like, that's all your subconscious things that are literally held in the body. And those subconscious beliefs are created at the age of between 0 and 7, because that's where we're functioning at that age. That's why that age is so important, right? Because it's so influential. It literally builds the foundation of who we're going to be as an adult, how we're going to carry ourselves, what we're going to think we're capable of, all of these things. That's why it's just so important to, like, really look after our children. But that's another whole side topic anyway.
I believe in that too. Yeah, when you find that out, it's kind of like, I only found that out about 5 or 6 years ago, and I didn't feel ripped off, but I was like, are you serious? Like, it was just it just found a lot of what I do now. And it's like, no wonder people feel stuck. No wonder people feel like they can't move through things, because the self-awareness, right? If we don't know about it, we can't change it or can't work on it.
Exactly.
One question that I have in there, that you were saying that, when clients come to you, and I'm guessing it can be virtual as well, they don't need to be in London. It'd be great to come to London to see you.
Yeah, I pretty much take all my clients over Zoom. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so when I know my clients, when they would have heard the word relax, or I'm going to ask you 20 questions and I want you to be in a relaxed state. I know a lot of people listening right now will be like, oh yeah, sure, that's good and well. I never relax. I don't know how to relax. Is that where the hypnotherapy comes in?
Yeah, that is. So there's a few things to that. So in the background, before I start asking them the questions, I play binaural beats, and that helps them get into a theta brainwave state where it really does relax you. So it really does get you just sinking in, and we do some breath work to start. So I'll get them to take some really, really deep breaths, really relax. I talk to them really calmly, really let them know that this is a safe space for them. There's no judgment, and there really isn't. And as I ask the questions, I say to them, I really want you to answer these questions from your heart space, because we are so conditioned to answer, to think from our brains, from our minds, right? And when we do that, there's immediately a story attached, right? So if I were to ask you, for instance, how loved do you feel on a scale of 1 to 10? Your brain is going to go, well, I know that my mum and dad love me. I have my brothers and sisters. I have my partner, like whatever the story is. And you might be saying, okay, with all of that, then I'm going to have to, I've got to say like an 8, like you're going to tell yourself a story. But it might just be that all is true. But how loved do you actually feel? That might actually be a 2. and there's no right or wrong, but what that then that it allows me to really understand is where you're limiting yourself. It doesn't mean that your parents or your husband or whoever doesn't love you, but it might be the love that you're really willing to accept. It might be that whatever there might be some sort of unlovable story in your childhood that we just want to get rid of, so you can really believe that love and really feel that love. So the questions are really important, and as I said, there's about 20 to 30 of them, and then from those answers, and it will always be you rating that from 1 to 10, I will then ask you phrases to find your limiting beliefs. So if we stick with the theme of love, for example, and you've said to me, I probably feel like a 2 out of 10 love, I'll say to you, repeat after me, I am unlovable. And if you repeat that back to me and you feel that, and I'll say, you know, how does that feel? Does that sit in your body? Are you feeling that? And you say yes, then I'm like, okay, we found a limiting belief here. And obviously this means that this could go any which way, right? There's so many limiting beliefs. There's so many different ways in which we can go. But for the sake of this conversation, we'll just stick with the one. And I really get you to feel it. And this is where it's different from any other therapy, is that it is so important to feel our emotions. And we are so conditioned to shutting down because we label emotions good and bad. We can't be angry, we can't be sad, we don't want to feel shame or guilt or any of those things. We just want to focus on feeling happy and all the rest of it. But that's just not reality. We're multi-dimensional humans, and our emotions make up the complex web of which we are. So these repressed emotions get stored in the body as energy, and they come out as physical ailments if we don't actually address them. They come out in anxieties, they come out in it might be acne, it could be anything, it could be a tumor, it could be anything if we're not dealing with things, because we really only appreciate the body as a physical thing because that's what we can see and that's what we've been told our whole lives. But the body is so much more than the physical. It's so much more, and our mind and body is so connected, and we are energy. So we have to honor that, and we have to really accept that it is all one. So when we find that limiting belief, and when we really start feeling it, and I'll get you to give it, I'll get you to tell me, where is it in your body? Like, is it in your chest? Is it in your gut? Is it on your shoulders? Like, where is it? Where have you been carrying it? And ask you to maybe even give it a color. Like, it might be black, it might be really heavy, whatever it is that helps you visualize and give it sort of a life, almost like you want to give it the energy. And then we breathe life into it. So we'll use breath work to really breathe life into it. And I'll get you to repeat it and say, I am unlovable, and all the rest of it. And then when I really feel like you're feeling it and you're really embodying the emotion, I'll ask you, when's the last time you felt this way? And it might be that morning, it might be the week before, whenever it is, but the memory will be quite fresh because we know when we feel these things, right? Then we'll unpack that time, we'll unpack what happened in that moment. And then this is where the hypnosis really comes in. I'll say, have you felt like this before? And then we go to the story before, and then before and before and before. And it might be a fair few stories before we really hit that childhood story. That's where we want to go. We want to go all the way back. And, I'm going to keep this simple and not go too complicated, but it could go back to the womb. It could go back to a past life. It could go back to wherever the hell this story began. And yes, most of the time it is in childhood, because again, that's where we are experiencing the world through our subconscious, not our conscious mind. We grow into that. And and obviously as children, we just don't have the cognitive ability to understand when things aren't really about us, but we absorb it as if they are. and we misinterpret things, and we misinterpret things that our parents do, or the adults around us do, or other children around us do, and we lock them in as true, as beliefs about us, right? It could be something so simple as you walked into the room and you wanted to show your mum a picture you did at school, and she was too busy doing the cooking, and she was on the phone to someone, and she just sort of shunned you, and you were like, you know, and you locked that in as, oh, mum doesn't value me, or I'm not important, or I'm not good at this, or whatever story it is. You're only a child, right? Yeah. And we have to have compassion for that limited understanding that we had as a child. So then we just unpack all that, and we retell the narrative, and what we do is we bring ourselves into the picture as this adult version of us, of who we are now today, and show that child the love that they needed, and explain to the child what was going on and all of this stuff, and just really just give us the love that we wanted, you know. And it's not that saying our parents didn't love us or whatever else, but that's just what we internalized, and it's only really us as our adult selves who can go back and really fix that, because we are that child and that child is us. So we're only really going to believe it from ourselves, and it goes back to that whole, it comes from within, everything is within. But I'll pause for a minute and let you speak.
Yeah, no, I'm loving this is fantastic, because I'm learning so much. But there's one thing too in there that I know through the work I do, and you know, everyone has a journey, and you get to a point in your life where you're like, I can't do this anymore, and you kind of do your own discovery and your own learning. But I know that there'll be people out there listening who, to be honest, don't want to go back there, don't want to feel the emotions, don't want to deal with it. That's why a lot of people drink, overeat, undereat, do drugs, gamble, have a lot of sex, or just live on this merry-go-round that people are on, or keeping up with the Joneses, or living a life that they think they should have the white picket fence, and they should get married, and then by 30 they should have 2 kids, and the kids should be this and that and that and that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I feel that a lot of people need you, Steph. People need this work, because I see clients, and what I'm trying to educate people about is, don't leave it until something bad happens to go, oh, Barbara, can I see you for nutrition? Because I've got this disease, or my body aches, or I've got this flare up, or I've got digestive issues. Like, why don't we do it now? Don't wait until shit hits the fan, because it does, because you said that the mind and body are connected, which I truly believe that too. Because I used to be the most disconnected person you'll ever meet. Like, it was my mind and my body, like they're in different countries, you know?
Yeah.
And when you bring them together, you know what? It's going to keep coming back at you until you work it out. And your body is such a beautiful thing. So if you keep getting those sore tummies, you keep getting those headaches, mate, your body's trying to tell you something. Yeah, it's not trying to be horrible. It's not broken. It's actually going, hey, I want to be your best friend. Hi. It's like the little kid in the corner. Can you listen to me? Like, it keeps, you know.
Yeah.
And this work you do, I don't, you know, guys, if you're listening to this, you know, check stuff out, because it does sound scary. It is. When you go, oh my God, I'm going to talk about emotions. We all know we've got them. We all know we've got stuff from childhood. Every single person does. I haven't met one person. If people say no, they don't, it's BS. But I think, you know, working with you, it's in a safe space, but you have a process. And I think, you know, trapped emotions do become disease. Trapped emotions do become blockages in your body.
They do. Yeah. And what I would say to those people is, you do have to be brave, but pick your pain. Pick your, you know, because this is the other thing. You can only hold an emotion intensely for no longer than 45 seconds. Right?
Really?
That is the longest time you can intensely hold an emotion for at its full capacity. So
is it everything? So if I really love something, I can only love, like my dog's here, Maisie. So I can only really love her deeply for 45 seconds at a time.
No. So if you were like, let's just say, for example, you have an absolute tantrum and you're just literally screaming and da 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 da, if when you're at your full capacity of that, you cannot go longer than 45 seconds. You like, if you watch a child and then they're just like, like they just can't anymore. So yes, you can go on you can have a tantrum for a longer time, but at your full capacity, like it is just too like much, like it just subsides. So what I would say is like, feel it now once so that you don't have to feel it again, so that the ripples aren't carrying on throughout your life. And it's scarier really to do the damage of the drinking and the drugs or whatever else that you're using to suppress than it is to just do it. It's so painful to choose the other route. And like, you know, everyone is different, and I understand that people have very different scopes of what they're comfortable with, and I totally get that. And that is taken into consideration. Like, if you come into a session and that is something that really scares you, we'll stick heavily and solely on the emotions that you're feeling in the current sort of space. But the other thing that I would say is maybe some people aren't ready for it. Some people need to do a lot more of the talk therapy before. Some people just need to take those steps before they get to this kind of work, because it is deep, and you do have to have or you do have to be willing to look at yourself. You do have to be willing to grow in self-awareness. You have to honor the fact that you have mirrors and triggers and traumas, and understand that you are not this, you know, picture perfect person that is exhausting to upkeep. So for me, I totally understand it, and I have a lot of empathy and compassion for that. And that's why I really do try and just make it a really safe, nurturing space. And so far, clients like it.
Meeting you over Zoom for the first time, you've definitely got that. You know, when you meet people, you just go, you know, that real likable factor, but you just know, I feel safe with you. You know how you just have that, we have that feeling when you meet someone. So
thank you.
I can see why you do what you do. But also, what was the other thing I wanted to ask you? No, it's just gone. But I'm just trying to think, because it was actually really, it was really good.
Oh, sorry, there's me yabbering on.
No. So I think for everyone listening here, I found it. That's good. For everyone listening, I just want to ask you a question that, or kind of just see if you agree with me. If anyone's listening to this, know that every single human being on this earth has, you know how you said those things, triggers, has mirrors, has something going on that they need to work through. I think we have this perception that there's two categories: people that have messed up lives and have been through so much and just written off, or people that just have their lives together and just amazing. Like, you know, I really believe that as human beings, we put people into these kind of couple of categories that, oh gosh, they've got, you know, oh, poor so-and-so, or wow, they're amazing. And I want people to listen out to hear this, that just know everyone out there has something.
Everyone.
And would you agree with that?
Absolutely. You wouldn't be human if you didn't. And these things make you up. So these aren't things to shy away from or be embarrassed of or be ashamed of. Everyone has light and dark. Everyone has light and shadow. That's just what we are and who we are. We wouldn't be able to grow as humans and evolve as humans if we didn't acknowledge our shadow and our dark parts. Like, they teach us they teach us so much about ourselves, and without breakdowns, without realizations, without all of these things, we just wouldn't step forward into the next level and the next version of ourselves.
We wouldn't go through why this is happening, or I see a lot of clients where something happens and they have that can't do this anymore, and that's when they reach out. So it's like, it happens. It could be they just overeat or binge eating or undereat, or just every Monday comes along and they diet, or they have these negative thoughts all the time. Whatever the thing is, I find that people always reach out in a crisis, always reach out when that night before or that weekend, it's like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
And I want people to celebrate that's a good thing. Because
it's a great thing.
Yeah. But people think,
Yeah.
I know, probably the same with you when you get your, when people come to you, they're like really shunned over, their body language is like, oh, I'm really sorry. I just feel so, there's something wrong with me. Like, and I want to celebrate it, that this emotional release therapy, like, what an amazing tool.
Yeah, it really honestly is. And I also just want people to know that, like, I've been there. I'm sure you've been there. Like, we've all had these rock bottom moments. We've all had major waves of feeling down and like, we can't do this and this is shit and blah, blah, blah. And it takes work. It takes this to come out the other side. And it's not to say that everything's shining on this side, because the triggers constantly arise and there's new levels. And this is the thing, you're constantly climbing that ladder of self-growth. But it becomes so much less scary the more you know yourself, and the more you can see it, and the more you go, yeah, and you don't take it personally, because you know, oh, this is kind of exciting. Now I know that I'm going to level up again. Like, it's a different narrative.
I like their way of thinking, oh, this is okay, I'm going to go up again. I like this.
Yeah, I'm like, fucking bring on those triggers.
I'm almost there. I can see what you mean, but it's interesting that you almost can see, it's not out of body, but you can almost look back at yourself or look at yourself, or even I'm at the point now where something will happen and I'll be like, I'm a lot quicker.
Yeah, it's quicker. It's sped up. You see it straight away. Instead of it taking months to get over, it goes to weeks and then days and then hours. And before you know it, you're like, I'm not even going to entertain this, because, you know, it's just, it really does. It gets like that. But the thing is as well, I always say this, the more you know yourself, the less scared you are of life and anything else, because no one can, people are triggered when people have the wrong opinions of them, right? If someone says something, you're like, that's not me. That's not, like, how dare you think that or say that, right? But that's only because it's threatening their own sense of self. The more you know yourself, the more you have that greater sense of self. Literally nothing, or at least a lot less, rattles you. People don't trigger you as much because you're so sure in yourself that it doesn't really matter. And this external stuff, whatever is outside of you, ultimately never matters. No one can ever tell you who you are. No other thing can influence you, because you are you. So as long as the home that you have in your body, as long as the talk that you have with yourself is strong and sure, and that can only really happen with knowing yourself on that deeper level. So you're going to be fine. This is where the strength comes. This is where the self-identity really evolves, and you just become who you're meant to become, because we're so conditioned to become something that society wants us to become. But when we start having that strength and that power to just become who we want to become, we just become so literally unfuckwithable. Like, I love that saying, because it's just so true.
Yeah, I was just thinking then, it's so interesting, because most people actually pass away living a life that they live for someone else or pleasing people. And it's such an interesting thing. There's so many people out there that live a life that's not theirs. Live a life because they think they should. Live a life because that's what they were told to. Live a life because, I'm worried about what people will think. And just getting simple validation and people pleasing from people. You know, and I think the more you're yourself, you'll find your people, and all you need is one or two around you that get you, and life is amazing. But it's, you know, I know what life was like, and I don't know if you were at some point in your life where you have lived a life where you're the yes person and you do everything to keep other people happy, and you always over deliver, and be that person that just makes everyone else feel good, and people just take. but also it's so empty because you're like, you know, I did a degree at uni that looking back, I only did it because my parents said to do it. Like now I'd never do it, but you do these things because, oh yeah, I should go to university, or I should do this, or I'll get married because that's the thing you do, or you know, I won't start my new business because I've got to feed the, you know, and it's all relative to what you're talking about.
All these narratives that we're conditioned to believe. And I think we're lucky that we're this generation that now have this sort of new awareness, right? When we think of our parents and our grandparents, like they just had completely different views and ways of life. And it was very much like, get a job and just work hard and and like that's commendable. Now I just, not to say it's laughable, it's not, but it's just like, God, that is so far off what you're meant to be doing, like what you're here for. But I think now we are lucky that we are in the generation where even these type of conversations are being had. And I'm having these kind of conversations with my parents, and they're sort of starting to learn who they are again for the first time after years of just following the crowd, you know, like just doing what you're supposed to be told. And that's empowering, and hopefully the generation after us as well will just be even more so, and they'll be even more self-aware and awake and all the rest of it. So hopefully we're going in the right direction. I think so. But yeah,
I think so too. But just having these things that no one, I'm sure there's other people too listening today that I like me, I've dived deep into this kind of self-healing and all, and it's part of what I do as a business. But for myself, I've never come across this before.
And there's so many modalities that there really are. Like I am someone who I search high and low for as much as many things as possible. I like literally you make money and you spend it on the healing. You spend it on this, you know, just all this stuff, because for me, and going back to what we were talking about before about it being scary, about people not wanting to face it. For me, it's scarier to not do this. For me, it's a scarier idea to not be who I'm fully meant to be. So I'll do all the digging, I'll do all the work, because that is just my number one value.
Was there a time where Steph didn't want to do that stuff? So people know. Okay, so you've always wanted to do the work. You didn't want to like just follow what everyone else was doing or anything like that?
Look, I do really, really understand it. I really do. And I would say the only time in my life where I've done that really was I was in a long-term relationship, and it's very easy to slip into the routine of a relationship, and we had a shared business and things like that. And I didn't really want to do the business. So I would say that time in my life, I was kind of just like, all right, and, you know, and I was like, just be grateful, you know, counting all the things on my hands that were going well in my life because I was using my mind. But when I sunk into my heart space, I did not want to do it. You know, I was not on my life path. I resented it, quite frankly. So it's that whole thing where if your body doesn't lie, so your mind can tell you whatever story you want to tell yourself, but your body knows the truth. And you can feel that. You know when you've got knots in your stomach. You know when there's that niggling thing and you just are like, can't ignore it anymore. So this is the thing. We have to listen to our body, and that's why meditation is so important. Sinking into the body and getting out of the mind. And people say this all the time, and I think people get really confused as to why we shouldn't think, because thinking brings us forward or whatever, but our thoughts are not reality. We are not our thoughts. Our thoughts change all the time, and half the time, and I say this phrase a lot as well, is our thinking isn't even our thinking. Our thoughts aren't our thoughts. They are conditioned beliefs from society, from our parents, from other people. Half the time we don't even know what our opinion is about something. So half the time our thoughts aren't even our thoughts. Our thinking isn't our thinking. You know, we're so confused with what our opinion actually is, because we're so influenced by Instagram, our parents, our friends, etc. So that's why the meditation is so important, because it really gets us to sink in and go, okay, what do I actually really think and feel? Who who am I? Who am I when I take away all this other stuff and all these other thoughts or influences, even down to the clothes I wear or whatever it is. That's like a really superficial example. But when I really think about what do I want for my life, is that just something that my parents think would be good for my life or what? So that's why that's really important to just sink into that and listen to the body.
Yeah, and also to remind people, I can't remember the exact number, but I've got 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. Is that something right? Is it something?
Yeah, it's something really ridiculous. Like really, there's a lot of thoughts.
So let's go with 60, because even that's a lot. So imagine that you've got 60,000 thoughts a day running through your head, and none of them are real. Well, none of them like are really your thoughts, because it's from some marketing media that you've seen on social media. It's from what the neighbor said to you the other day. It's from whatever someone said to you at work. It's from when you're 4 years old running down the road with an ice block and you tripped over and grazed your knee. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's 60,000 thoughts a day. You think that we're running a marathon in our brain every day, aren't we, really?
That's why everyone is so freaking exhausted. That's why we just like can't do this anymore, because your internal is so not at ease. You know, if we were to see inside our emotional bodies,
wow,
we would be like, it would literally look like we've been gone to war. We'd be so cut up and bruised and broken, you know. It's just that we can't see it, and we ignore the healing of our emotional bodies because we can't see it. But if I had a big cut on my arm, I would do something about it, right?
Yes, I love this. Yep, very true. Yeah. So interesting. Sometimes you can just say something one way and it can really just change, can shift your whole perspective on things. That's why with healing or with any form of therapy or anything, you've got to find your person. You know, because I've done all sorts of things, and there have been unfortunately with my journey, the majority of people that I have reached out for help have been narcissistic psychopath freaks or power trip fuckers, really. And I can understand why people don't reach out or ask for help, because it is scary. But also the times that you do ask for help and you're vulnerable and you share all your shit, someone takes advantage of that. Or they use a power trip, or they're not in it for their right reasons. And so that can really actually cause more harm than good. And then you think, well, what's the point anyway? Like, why should I heal? Everyone's like, they kind of group everyone into that same.
They do. And that is, honestly, it's something that really, it upsets me, because, and I've actually had many conversations about this, about there being, sort of so many people call themselves a therapist or a coach and are not really that authentic with the whole thing. And I just think like, this is one of the most important jobs I feel that is out there. And I always say to my clients, I take this responsibility really, really fucking seriously. I really do. And I know how that feels, because I've been like you in those shoes where I've gone to someone in need and just felt like, what the fuck? And like, you know, they cost so much money. You just think, is this guy for real? Or is this guy like, I get it. And I get how disappointing and gut wrenching that is. And I get how exhausting that is and all of the rest of it. And so I'm just determined not to be one of those.
100% same. And also, one thing too is, on the flip side, I know so many people that have got qualifications up there, like so many qualifications, and they write journals and they're doctorate, you know, they're doctors and they're blah, 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 and they're wankers and they don't even help people. So there's that, you've got to find your person. So yes, do your research, but just because someone may not have a heavy academic background compared to someone that may have, it works in that favor too, that they may not be like right for their position as well. So that's something I've personally come up that we do need people outside our community to help us. We need people outside our family unit. I think it's really healthy to have someone like myself or you in people's lives. We're not their family, we're not their like friend, like we are, like how I'm sure you're like me, like I see everyone as an extended part of me, and
yeah.
but in reality, in someone's life, we're not their immediate family, we're not their work colleagues, we're not in their friend circles, we're not in their kids' daycare, and so we're someone that's removed. And when you have someone removed that you're vulnerable with, that you can really just, like you said at the very beginning, people just are not given the space just to be like, how are you? And you'll go through shit, and it's like having that safe space where you can, and like you, I'm sure I've done everything. So there's nothing that anyone has ever said to me in my time in my practice that I've gone, oh, people are like, Barbara, I just told you this thing, how come you're not shocked? And it's like, oh, it's all good. And having that, listening to them, having that safe space away from whoever. I think when people leave my studio, they're like, oh, see you next week. Like, they're really excited. And they've almost like dumped their shit in my studio, and they've been like, see you next week. Like, I'm going to leave you with all my crap. I'm going to go live my life. And then when we come together again every week, and that's kind of what it is, to explain it.
Yeah. I think as well, when you talk to friends and family, there's always that element of, they want to help you fix it. They want to give you their opinion, or it's a biased opinion or a projection, right? So it's really important that, I'm sure you're the same. Like, when you listen to your clients, you don't come to them with solutions necessarily. You want to empower them to come up with it for themselves. We don't project what we want onto them. We don't have our own opinions, because we're self-aware enough to know that what we think doesn't matter anyway, because it's about them and their journey, and honoring that and where they're at and what they need to uncover for themselves. And we can't know them better than they know themselves anyway. So it's about giving them the keys to unlock that for themselves.
Have you read my website? I know you haven't, but that's exactly almost word for word what I preach with what I do. Preach is
because it's the truth, right? It's the truth.
God. Yeah, what I say is no one knows themselves better than you. You're the expert of yourself. Exactly. And that's all that matters. So as you're saying that stuff, I'm like, girl, you're reading my it's like everything you say, I'm like, oh yeah, I say that stuff all the time.
And that's why we do what we do, right? That's why we're using the same language, because we're in the same space for people.
Yeah, and just keep going. If you haven't found your person yet, reach out, and you will find your, I got knocked back. I'd say I've seen 5 or 6 different types of whatever you want to call it, practitioners, therapists in this type of space that have all been terrible. And I'm not just terrible, I mean catastrophic,
Yeah, I've walked out of some before.
Oh, mine, one day I'll share a couple of stories, but mine have been a boundary breaking, like ones that ethically they probably could have, been really in trouble for, and the law could have got involved. So
really? Oh,
and that's why I just want people to know that there are good people out there who will actually help you, but don't fall for the smoke and mirrors. Don't fall for someone that if you go to a coach or go to someone that you look at and you think, wow, they've got all their shit together, red flag.
And just know that they don't, and I would say just really use your gut. Go with your gut feeling. Trust your intuition. In a way, it's a bit like dating, right? you might have to go through a few until you find the right one, but trust your gut on it, because it's always the ones who are like, I knew I shouldn't have gone to that one, where they're not the right person, right? So and do your research. Just watch if they have things on Instagram, watch them, get a feel for them.
No, I think that's wrapping up, is there anything else that you want to share about what you do, or anything that's coming up for you?
Oh, I mean, not really. I feel like we covered the most of that kind of thing, but I would just say, really, well, thank you to you first of all, but really for anyone listening, just it's never too late. I think a lot of people as well are like, oh, I'm too old now, or this, or I should have started this ages ago, or even, you know, I hear excuses like, oh, it's too expensive or whatever like that. And I understand, I understand we want to tell ourselves all these things. But it really comes down to priority. It really comes down to like how much you choose yourself. And I think we're so used to not choosing ourselves. We've got to get used to choosing ourselves, because that's the only way we're going to move forward into the person we want to be. So do the work, do what makes you feel uncomfortable, and reap the rewards. It doesn't take that long to shift things. It really doesn't. And I promise you, it becomes addictive. You're going to want to do more. You're going to keep wanting to go, and you're going to be just more confident as you do it and feel more whole as you do it. And you're not alone. You're really not. There are people like myself and like you who really do want to help.
Yeah. Yeah. And for those that feel like they're stuck in their ways, because you're never too old, but also a lot of people will just feel stuck and almost that feeling of deflated and I just can't be bothered. But I tell you, once you make that, it's like when you don't want to go for a walk and you put your shoes on, you go for a walk and I really enjoy that. I want to do that more.
Yeah.
Work on yourselves is exactly the same, guys. Like put your shoes on, put your socks on, whatever. Take the first step. I know this sounds a bit but literally just reach out to that person and just start doing it, because once you start doing it, it's fantastic and you meet amazing people. And like you deserve to be happy, and you deserve to live your life.
Yeah. You deserve that freedom for yourself.
Yeah. Just 100%. Yeah. So, I know if there's anyone listening, they'll be like, okay, well, I'm going to be brave, I'm going to be uncomfortable, and I want to do some emotional release therapy. So how can they get hold of you and work with you?
Yeah. So the best way is probably via Instagram at the moment. So it's Happy Healing Hypno, all one word. So just DM me on there, and then I'll direct you to my website, and we can discuss dates, whatever, and then you just book through there. I also have a podcast, the Happy Healing Podcast on Spotify, and I do have episode 1 and 2 are basically me talking about the therapy and exactly what to expect and all the rest of it. So if anyone's still a bit unsure, they can listen to those 2 episodes, get a bit more of a feel for it. But otherwise, yeah, that's it really.
Awesome. And also hypnotherapy, just touching on it really quickly before we go. People probably think you're not going to make them dance like a chicken or make them do silly things.
Hollywood has ruined the concept of hypnotherapy. Everyone thinks like, oh my God, are you going to make me walk outside naked? I'm like, no.
Maybe tomorrow.
Yeah. You are still completely aware. So we just go into a more relaxed state so that we're not just spending the whole time in story mode, right? In that kind of like, oh, this and this and this and da. And we go into the feeling mode. We go into just that memory mode. So it's kind of like when you go into a daydream or something like that, you're there, you know what's happening, but you're just kind of like drifting. I don't know how to explain it.
No, I got that. And I think it's just really important for people to know that it's going down into your subconscious. So you're working rather than surface level stuff, you're working on the stuff in a safe, controlled manner. It's nothing to be scary, it's nothing to be scared about. Yeah. And what an amazing, I'm sure we'll chat again, and just what an amazing gift you have, Steph. And so I want to thank you for being in this field and actually being here for the right reasons and helping people. So I do hope if you are listening to this, please let Steph know that I've sent you and that you listen to this podcast, because that would just really make what we do just so worthwhile. So
that kind of thing really does warm our hearts.
Yeah, I know. It's really nice, and we'll be cheering, alongside you all the way. And likewise, if you have any questions about today or what we've spoken about, please reach out to Steph or myself. Just send us a DM on our Instagram pages, and we can just go from there.
Yeah.
So honestly, thank you so much, and I hope you have a nice night. And I'll talk to you soon.
Perfect. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and it has inspired you on your self-care journey. Please feel free to share this with a friend and subscribe over on Apple Podcast. I really love hearing your feedback, so guys, please feel free to write a review on Apple and let me know which part of this episode resonated with you the most. To fall in love with yourself is the first secret to happiness. To find out a bit more about Self-Care Studio or the Studio Chat podcast, head over to my Instagram page, self_care_studio, or on my website, selfcarebybarbarathomson.com.au. Really look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Look after you, and I'll catch you soon. Bye!